Welcome back, folks, to our guest artist series. We are on episode 17, which means we've been doing this for about 17 weeks now. So thanks so much for sticking with us. Today we have Bonnie Hodur and Don Williams joining us, and they are very special members of our Shakespeare in Delaware Park family. They have been seen on Shakespeare Hill as audience members. They have been seen as board members for Shakespeare in Delaware Park. And most importantly, they are just overall enthusiastic Shakespeare in Delaware Park supporters. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have you. We're going to talk today about your experiences on Shakespeare Hill, both as audience members and as your role behind the scenes in your various capacities. So if you wouldn't mind just starting by telling us about your history with Shakespeare in Delaware Park, when you first started coming to the Hill, how long you've been coming to the Hill, stuff like that.
I remember when I was in high school, I remember going to see this play with my parents, and I don't remember what play it was. It was just outdoors, and we brought blankets, and, it was really pretty cool. I remembered that. That was the big thing for me, and I just was amazed at how good these actors were. Up until that point, I had not seen a lot of live theater, and so that was really super special.
So the two of us met in 1990 when we started teaching in the same school building after having taught elsewhere. And we became friends and found out we had some common interests, one of which was a great love of the theater. And it was the mid-90s, 95 maybe, when we started going to Shakespeare in Delaware Park, and we just got hooked, majorly hooked. You know how it is. Shakespeare is tough. The dialogue is archaic, and my personal preference is what they do with the dialogue, which is true to Shakespeare's writing, rather than update the wording, do all kinds of things with the costumes and setting and so forth. But the words are real, and so now we've pretty much formed a habit of seeing each show twice, usually 3 or 4 times. So we'll be on the Hill 6 or 8 times a season, because you get to see the show evolve, the characters evolve in the hands of the actors who are playing those characters. But you also pick up a lot of things that you missed the first or second time through, and you really kind of get a much better understanding of the show that way. So we heartily recommend to people that they copy that model and go see it a few times.
By seeing the plays as many times as we do, it helps them become real. And, the actors, they own the roles more, as you had just said.
Absolutely.
And it becomes so much more real. It's great to see that progression throughout the entire season.
We'd been to see the shows several times over a number of years, and in the early 2000s or late 90s, I'm not sure exactly, one of our friends who had been on the board of directors, Will Senior, invited us to come to the feast, and well, that was fun. So we started going to the feast every year. Maureen Purcell, who had been on the board for some years and she was board president for a time, she greeted us as we arrived and said, "You guys are here all the time, maybe you should join the board." And so we wound up on the board. We became board members, and we became active in supporting the feast and finding things to auction off. And it doesn't take any special talent. We go out to eat. We support various businesses by buying things and so forth. And once we've done business someplace, after maybe a couple of times, we'll go, "What do you think about donating to Shakespeare in Delaware Park?" We've had the experience of going to a restaurant for the very first time. The owners came by the table to greet us. We got to talking and, "Oh, sure, we'll give you a gift certificate."
Back then, they asked us to show up to the final tech rehearsal and bring food so that we could feed the actors and also meet the actors. So we had the opportunity at that point to actually begin to develop some friendships with some of these actors. And it's continued to this day. And in fact, we've gotten to know various actors and their families. It's really kind of cool. That makes it even more interesting too, when you get to know the actor on a personal level, and you can talk about their character, about their role. And then, they're like, "Hey, come on over here. I want you to meet Bonnie and Don. They're friends of mine." And so now you meet another actor, or "Come on, tonight we're having a gathering. You want to join us?" And it's like, okay, sure, why not?
And starting in 2004, Henry IV Part 1, at the feast, every year they auction off a couple of cameos. So that's the first time I bought one. It was my first year on the board. So that sounds like fun. So it was a backstage tour and a cameo. It was a walk-on for 10 or 15 seconds mostly. Most times you didn't even have a character. I mean, it was just, there you were. Brian Cavanaugh was directing Measure for Measure back in, 13? He had me on for an entire act and had me do a curtain call with the rest of the cast. It was really, as Bonnie said, we have formed some friendships with some of the actors. It's really something special.
But speaking of knowing the actors, we're also taking our grandnieces to Theater of Youth. And they're 10 and 13 now, or 11 and 13. So they're kind of aging out of Theater of Youth. But, it's like, oh yeah, we know these actors and who are here in the show. And they're like, okay, cool. And then first thing, they get in there, they are looking at the actors' pictures and their bios. And they're like, oh yeah, I know this one. This one was in this show. This one was in that show. And, oh wow, I can't wait to see what he or she does with this one. So, we're building the next generation of theater goers, is the way we look at that.
You were talking about how you see every show each season 2 or 3 times. I think that's amazing because, Don, you were saying Shakespeare can kind of be a foreign language, and seeing it, over and over again, it's like taking a class every time, and you start to understand that language a little bit more. And because of that, you see things that you might have missed. Like you were talking about, Bonnie, the scenes that you might not have seen before because you take in, the broad overview of it, and then you can go back and piece together the little nuances. So many people who come back, weekend after weekend, there's families that would come back once a week for every show. It's incredible. And it's so amazing. I think that's aided in the fact that, it's outdoors, it's free, it's very accessible to people, which is wonderful. And the other thing I was just going to say is that the community that you talk about, you both just talked about, and that is created on the Hill is so familial and like a large friendship. It's something that I think is strived for at the core of every theater establishment. And it's so wonderful how Shakespeare in Delaware Park is able to capture that and to keep, people like the two of you coming back year after year. It's a really amazing thing. And you helped create that environment, with meeting those actors and taking the time and being active audience members and an active fan base, which is really important, a really important part of it. So it's really amazing. And
so Grace, you were asking us to talk about how is it different viewing theater outdoors from viewing theater indoors, and the distractions. I've got a lot of things going through my mind most of the time. I think we all do. So, when you're in the theater, that can, especially many of our smaller theaters in Western New York, and it turns out I can't always deal with my own brain, but that's okay. But on the Hill, okay, so let's see. Uh-oh, that dog over there, he keeps moving around. Oh, his chain keeps making noise. Oh, did you see those geese going overhead? Oh my gosh. Did you check out that bike? Oh, that is a really sweet bike. I wish I had one of those. Of course, this is all going through my brain. So yeah, for us, closeness to the stage, that's really important.
I'm sure, yeah, that's got to help to eliminate the distractions. Because like you said, not only do you have the fact that you go from daylight to the setting sun to nighttime, so that visual shift, and then you have the Skajakwada in the background and the distraction of the audience who's also, watching. And so that makes a lot of sense to be closer to the stage and have everything be up close for you, for sure. What would you say to convince someone to come and enjoy Shakespeare Hill who has never been before?
Well, we've got things pretty well choreographed. So we get there early enough that we can sit reasonably close to our ideal spot. We will prepare dinner ahead of time. We'll get there by 6. We're finished with that before the show starts. Never been there before, you should see Shakespeare. I don't know what your experience has been with Shakespeare before, but whatever it was, you need to see Shakespeare. If you haven't seen a play before, if you only read it because you were a student, you need to see it. So we have extra chairs, we have extra blankets, come and join us. Come and join us. We'll have a nice dinner. We'll have a nice time. If nothing else, you'll have a nice social experience. It's free. We love to entertain people on the Hill. We've done that lots of times.
Something I love about Buffalo is that, it's titled the City of Good Neighbors. It's wonderful that Shakespeare in Delaware Park seems to continue that ideal as well of City of Good Neighbors. Like you said, people are just so warm and welcoming and open. It creates such a wonderful atmosphere for people that are coming to see the show, but also for the people creating the show, because so much of acting is, feeding off of the energy that an audience gives you. When you have a funny scene, it helps so much to hear those laughs. And so to also get that energy of community and camaraderie and just welcomeness from the audience prior to the show, so that when you step on stage, you're hit with that. It is so harmonious, and it really creates a really nice blend of everyone there. So I'd love to take a walk down memory lane to close and just hear one of your favorite SDP memories, if you have one.
So back in 2010, Saul and whoever decided to do the all-female cast of Macbeth. And I thought, whoa, this is going to be really interesting. And it's like, well, that's such a heavy male-centric play. And it's just like, okay, well, what are they going to do? Okay, let's see it. Bring it. And of course, we know that, in Shakespeare's time, it was always the men dressed as women. So now we're kind of doing a whole flip on that. So at the very end of that play, Katie White was playing the role of Macduff. And at the end, Ross comes by and brings the news that her children and wife had been killed. And she had fallen to her knees and was just in total and complete agony and tears. And the way she was presenting this, I could feel her, and you could hear it now.
Having seen the show several times, she reacted this way on that night as well. What was interesting to me about that scene and that play, by 10 minutes in, you forgot that there were females playing male roles. They were actors. You were convinced it was a man playing the role, but with the kind of pathos that the feminine side of a man would bring out. She did it brilliantly. A lot of people were in tears that night at that scene.
It's wonderful to see and feel an audience moved to the point of a physical reaction because of their ability to connect with the performance, but also the performer's ability to convey so deeply and genuinely what is going on in that scene. It's something that sticks with you forever because it makes it real. That's the beauty of theater, is that feel like you're with the character, you're with the actor. And it's just a remarkable thing. It reminds us of the range and beauty of the range of emotions and experiences that we can experience as humans. It's a really cool thing. All right, Don, your turn.
5 years ago, Tom Laughlin was directing Romeo and Juliet. We sat kind of mid-stage, first time we saw it. And so, if you recall, Marie Hasselbeck-Costa played Benvolio, Romeo's cousin, and Mercutio was played by Nick Gurwitz. The two of them had developed this little romantic relationship. At some point, they head up the hill and snatch a bottle of wine from somebody's picnic selection and carry it on up the hill. And then they came back down to the stage, took the bottle of wine with them. We noticed that they always turned the label away from the audience. We talked to Marie about it later. We've gotten to know Marie pretty well over the years. But the next time we went to the show, we sat right in that spot and made sure we had some wine for them. We saw it twice more after that. Once we took a magnum of wine from a winery in California with a very distinctive label, and we talked to Marie ahead of time. This was from winery that's been very generous to us over the years. He donates a 3-liter bottle of wine every year to the feast. And then we kind of thought, if you could turn that label to the front, we'll take a picture and send it to him. He'll know we're showing his wine on the stage. That was kind of neat. That was fun, being kind of part of that scene. And
That's so great though. Stuff like that, it's the environment of the Hill allows for that. It's a cool thing. It's a lot of fun. Well, Dawn and Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was so wonderful getting to hear your side of the Hill and everything that you do for Shakespeare. I mean this sincerely. We are privileged and honored and lucky to have you a part of the SDP family. So thank you for your continued support and generosity and enthusiasm for everything we do. It's audience members and supporters like you who make Shakespeare in Delaware Park continue to thrive.
Thanks
so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As always, make sure to like and tag your friends, and we'll see you next week for episode 18.